How much difference does a saxophone mouthpiece really make to your tone? Now, we all know that your sound ultimately comes from a huge mix of factors: your embouchure, your throat, your jaw position, your air support, even your posture. But if the mouthpiece barely mattered, why did so many legendary sax players spend time customizing their gear? If the mouthpiece didn't make a difference, surely everyone would just use a cheap student setup and call it a day. And what about custom necks, ligatures, and even different lacquer finishes? There's obviously something going on. Players like Coltrane worked with Frank Wells, a Chicago-based technician, to dial in his setup. Brecker collaborated with Guadala. David Sanborn modified his Dukoff. And even today, loads of pros work with specialist mouthpiece refacers to fine-tune their gear. So clearly there's a reason for all this effort. But at the same time, I know a professional player with a stunning sound who uses a basic Rico student mouthpiece. So there's definitely more to unpack here. In this video, I'm going to break down what difference a mouthpiece actually makes and whether your hard-earned money is really worth spending on an expensive piece of kit. Because let's be honest, a lot of these mouthpieces cost a small fortune, and the vintage ones can cost more than the saxophone itself. For context, I spent years working in a woodwind specialist shop in central London. I got to test hundreds of mouthpieces, ligatures, necks, and all sorts of gimmicks, and I saw what real players, students, hobbyists, and pros were actually using. I'm not claiming to be a guru, but it did give me a good insight into how people choose their setups and why. And just so you know my perspective, I always recommend that my students use a reliable basic mouthpiece until they can comfortably play the full range of the instrument. Only then is it worth exploring what a different mouthpiece can offer. Before we go any further, I'd love to know what mouthpiece you use and why you like it. There's never been such a huge range available, so drop your setup in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. And of course, if you like this sort of content, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really helps, and check out the links in the description for a free PDF of licks. There's more to choosing a mouthpiece than just tone, and this explains why so many of us chase after the one. A good mouthpiece should let you play the full range comfortably, give you the right amount of resistance, and complement the sound you're trying to create. So it's not just about tone, it's also about ease, comfort, and playability. For example, one of the reasons Michael Brecker customized his mouthpiece was to make things physically easier after his neck surgery. Players often find a mouthpiece they like, but maybe it's too resistant, or the low notes don't pop as easily as they'd like. Sometimes that is a technique thing, but not always, and that's why the search for the perfect mouthpiece never ends. What about off-the-shelf mouthpieces? There are loads of fantastic off-the-shelf options: Selmer, Ottolink, Van Doren, Rico, Maya, and many others. These companies offer reliable, consistent mouthpieces that work brilliantly for most players, but it's worth understanding the difference between hand-finished and fully handmade pieces. Hand-finished mouthpieces start as machine-made blanks, and then a skilled technician refines crucial details like the facing curve, rails, and baffle to improve how they play. Fully handmade mouthpieces, on the other hand, are shaped entirely by hand from raw material, so every curve, bevel, and surface comes directly from the maker. Hand-finished pieces tend to be more affordable and consistent, while handmade ones are more expensive, more individual, and often have that special artisan character. Because mouthpieces are hand-finished, there's always some variation in the final product. That's why you can pick up 5 mouthpieces of the same brand and model and find that each one plays slightly differently. It's also the reason sax players often try several of the same mouthpiece before choosing the one that feels right. When I was playtesting mouthpieces, I found that things like the tip, opening, rails, and table didn't actually change the tone that much. They mainly affected how resistant or free-blowing the mouthpiece felt. What did noticeably change the tone were the baffle. A higher baffle usually gave me a brighter, punchier sound, whereas a lower baffle produced a darker, rounder tone. Let me know in the comments if you've experienced anything different. Then there's the question of materials: ebonite, metal, bronze, wood, and even glass. Personally, I've found the difference between ebonite and metal to be pretty minimal when it comes to tone, I play a metal Van Doren V16 and also own the ebonite version. The ebonite is slightly warmer, but the difference is tiny. Wooden mouthpieces, in my experience, tend to sound darker and don't resonate quite as well as hard rubber. And the glass mouthpieces I've tried just felt a bit dead. But that's just my personal experience. What about vintage mouthpieces? Vintage mouthpieces are so sought after mainly because of their sound, craftsmanship, and rarity. Earlier mouthpieces, especially from the 40s to the 70s, were made from different high-quality hard rubber formulas and were usually hand-finished by skilled craftsmen, which gave them unique facing curves, chambers, and baffle shapes that aren't always replicated in modern mass production. Many legendary players use these pieces, so people associate them with iconic tones. On top of that, true vintage mouthpieces are limited in supply. Many have been worn out, refaced, or damaged over the decades, so original examples are increasingly rare. Some players also believe that the aging of old hard rubber subtly affects resonance, adding to the mystique. Whether it's physics, nostalgia, or a bit of both, the combination of great design, scarcity, and history is what drives the high price and the demand. So what's the overall verdict? In my opinion, the mouthpiece only has a small influence on tone. Compared to the player, a seasoned saxophonist will sound great on almost anything, because their embouchure, air support, and overall technique do most of the heavy lifting. That said, it is absolutely worth having a well-crafted mouthpiece with dimensions that suit you. A properly made, well-finished mouthpiece with precise engineering lets the reed vibrate freely, makes the instrument easier to control, and can last a lifetime. And to be clear, good off-the-shelf mouthpieces can definitely give you all of that. One thing that can drastically affect your tone is the reed, but that's a whole video on its own, so we'll get into that another time. Like I said, I'm not pretending to be an expert, just a sax player who spent way too many hours messing around with gear. I'd love to hear your take on this, so drop your thoughts in the comments. Until next time. Ever wondered how the world's greatest saxophonists get that rich, captivating tone? The Tone Bible reveals their secrets, the exercises, techniques, and mindset behind the sound. You'll learn how to play effortlessly across the full range, master expressive tools like ghost notes and growling, and shape your own unique voice. Plus, discover how mouthpieces, reeds, and setup choices transform your tone. The Tone Bible, your guide to sounding professional, powerful, and unmistakably you.